Hey loves, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Phoebe. Today's video will be on this gathered ruffle 2 sleeve. So if you're joining this channel for the first time, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you get alerted for my videos. So let's jump right into the tutorial. So this is the color of tulle that I'll be working with, and I have 10 yards of the tulle here, so 5 yards for each of the sleeves. So this is the first 5 yards of tulle. What I'm doing here is to find a way to fold this 5 yards of tulle in such a way that when I want to cut out the strips of fabric, it will be easy for me. So I tried to align the edge of the tulle, and I went ahead to cut that part out because I don't need it wasn't even. Then the width for the strip of tulle that I used to create the sleeves was about 5 inches. So I measured that 5 inches like so, and I went ahead to cut that part out. So after cutting the first layer, I placed it on the tulle again and went ahead to cut out a second layer. So now I have showed you guys how I cut out the strip of tulle. I'll go ahead and complete the process for the rest of the tulle and use this one to cut out the remaining 5 yards of tulle for the other sleeve. I've cut out all the layers of tulle that I'll be making use of for the sleeves. I had to pin them together for easy access. So this is the sleeve that I'll be sewing the tulle on, and the length of the sleeve is 15 inches, and I have 2 of the sleeves here. So on the good side of the fabric, I went ahead to measure 1 inch above the hem of the sleeve, which is actually the hem allowance for the sleeve. Then I connected other points into a straight line. Then from the head of the sleeve, I came downwards by a 0.75 inch, and I went ahead to mark that all around the head of the sleeve and went ahead to connect all the points together like so. Then after marking that from the head of the sleeve, I started marking out the lines that I would be sewing the tulle on. So the space between these lines were about half an inch. So you can choose to make yours 1 inch or however you want. So it just depends on what you have available. So I just calculated what I think would be enough for the sleeves, and I thought 10 yards would work for me. And in all honesty, the 10 yards was just enough for me. I had made something like this before. I shared a short on my channel where I made a dress for my sister, so I made something similar to this. So that experience just gave me the idea on the amount of tulle that I would need to create these sleeves. So if you want to see the dress that I made for my sister with the same sleeve, you can check for the shorts in my channel, or I'll just put a picture of the dress or a short clip of the video that I made so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm done creating the lines for the first sleeve. I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the second sleeve. So the second sleeve is also ready. This sleeve has a side seam allowance of 1.5 inches. So I'm just going ahead to mark that out on the 2 sides of each of the sleeves. So the reason for creating this line here and around the side seam and all around the head to this other side is to create a boundary for the tulle. So I'm going to head over to my sewing machine now to gather the tulle for the ruffles. What I have here is the layers of the first 5 yards of tulle for one of the sleeves. So I'm going to start by placing the edge of the tulle under my machine, and then from the middle of the tulle I'm going to start pushing the fabric this way, and in that way the tulle is being gathered as I sew all the way down to the other edge of the tulle. When I got to the edge of the tulle, I did not backstitch. I just cut out the excess thread, and you can see the first ruffle has been made. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to repeat the same step for the second layer of tulle. So I'm done making the second ruffle. So I'm practically going to repeat the same thing for all the layers of tulle. So here is another angle so that you guys can get a clear view of what I am doing. So I've been able to gather the first 5 yards of tulle for one of the sleeve. So the next thing is to sew it onto the sleeve. So here is the sleeve. Remember the boundary that was created from the side seam over the hem towards the side seam and around the armhole curve of the sleeve. So I just picked one of the gathered tulle, and then starting before the side seam allowance, I placed it right there at the point where I marked 1 inch above the hem of the sleeve, and I started to sew. So while sewing, I made sure to open up the center of the tulle and stitched it right onto that line that I marked there. So when I get to that point where I marked the side seam allowance, I would stop and I would go ahead to cut off the excess tulle. Then I'm going to turn the sleeve this way, then place the rest of the tulle on the second line starting before the point where I marked the side seam allowance, and I would begin to sew again, making sure that I open up the tulle and place the center of the tulle where I gathered the tulle together. So I placed it on that line like so, and I continued to sew until I got to the other end. So far I've been able to sew 3 of the tulle. So this is how the inside looks like. So I'll just go ahead and fill up the rest of the lines. I'm done sewing on all the lines of the sleeve. This is what the inside looks like. So the next thing I did was to hem the sleeve by the 1 inch allowance that I added. So I just folded the hem twice and made a straight stitch. So for easy access of sewing the hem, I would advise that you hem the sleeve before you go ahead to sew your ruffles on the sleeve because it wasn't easy for me. I was struggling to sew it at this point. But just go ahead and make sure you sew your hem before you sew your ruffles. After sewing the hem of the sleeve is practically ready. So I'll be moving on to the next one, and I would first of all gather all the layers of tulle and then go ahead and sew it onto the lines on the sleeve, making sure to follow all the boundaries that I marked on the sleeve. The two sleeves are ready, and it took me about 6 hours to get the both of them ready. Trust me, this process is time consuming. This is the dress that I'm going to be attaching the sleeve to. I'm going to go ahead and sew the two sleeves to the armhole of the dress. So I have sewn the sleeves to the armhole of the dress, and what I love about this sleeve is how soft and fluffy it looks. I've also made a tutorial on this princess dart bustier with a square yoke. So if you haven't seen that video, please go and check it out, and I will see you all in my next video.